Hello out there, and at long last we are doing a first look video of this Kershaw Induction number 1905. And I just got back into town last night and had a whole bunch of new knives waiting for me. This one was definitely the one I had to talk about first because it is the Induction that was announced almost, 18 months ago, I guess, at SHOT Show of 2016. So really been waiting on this one for quite a while. Wanted to get it in front of the camera, but this is only going to be a first look video, and initial impressions because I've had this knife for about 12 hours at this point. What I will do though is suggest a few other videos that you should check out if you want full reviews or maybe some more in-depth stuff. My buddy Lefty Cutlery, he did a good review and was probably the first person I saw who actually had the production version of this knife. So I'll link to his video down below. And then also there are two other videos that I would suggest you check out if you're really interested in the hawk lock and the mechanism of this knife. Epic Snuggle Bunny and EDC Gear Reviews both have videos where they disassembled this knife. So really neat. I definitely do not want that kind of pain and that kind of frustration trying to do that. So I'm not going to be taking this knife apart unless I absolutely need to. But it was really good to have that information from them. So today, just gonna hit on all the high points and the things that stood out to me the first few times I held it and what I've learned in the last 12 hours or so, most of which I've been asleep. But let's just get into it. And what we have is a blade here of 8CR13 MOV. So this is an overseas imported knife from China. We have a two-tone finish, and the two-tone, if I can get it focused, here we are. The two-tone, it looks cool, but you can see it's just not done all that well. That's not wear right here by my thumb. It's just not even, and there are a couple spots where it just looks a little bit sloppy. So sort of a bummer there because it's a very attractive knife overall. It's a very good looking blade. The hollow grind, starts pretty far down. So we have a good size flat and then a really nice big swedge there. So it makes it very attractive, and I just really would have liked to have seen that that coating be really even. I haven't seen that problem on all of the examples of inductions that have come out so far, so maybe just a little bit of inconsistency in manufacturing there. All right, and then as we move back, what we have is aluminum handle scales with a glass-filled nylon insert on one side. So if you're right-handed, it'll be on the side where your fingers curve. So that'll be helpful to you, and it's also on the side where the locking mechanism is housed. So that's pretty good. But on the opposite side, all you have is just the slick aluminum handle scales and then our pocket clip. It is a two-position pocket clip, tip up only. A little bit of real estate poking out here. Not too big of a deal, but I would have liked to have seen a better clip. We do have a nice size lanyard hole, open frame construction. So those are all the basics, but let's just get into some more specs as far as weight and size. So for the size of this knife, it is pretty darn light. The aluminum is lightweight. There isn't a lot going on, 3.91 ounces. And what I mean by that when I say there isn't a lot going on is if you look at this knife, what's really cool about it is every single thing that has to do with the functioning of the knife is all right up here. There's no springs further back. There's no, liner lock or anything. It's just completely open, like really similar to what you would see from an axis lock. So, I like that. It is a pretty neat look when everything, all the business is in the front. So a pretty cool aspect of the knife there. Does keep it relatively light. This knife being under 4 ounces is it's pretty good when you take a look at other knives that it compares to as far as size. The first one that I thought of was the Kershaw Thistle. Pretty similar looking knives in general, but also just the overall length is right on par there. If you need more size comparisons, here it is next to a Leek. You can see how much bigger it is than the Leek. 3.25 inch blade length on this one, by the way. And then just a little bit of a teaser, here is the new CRKT Squid G10 handle scales on this one. So a couple other things to look at, like I said, as far as size comparison, but the one big dimension when you're looking at this knife is just the thickness of it overall. It's pretty wide, and I'm guessing there's just components up here that just as far as housing it goes that keep it from being any thinner. But Yeah, it is a little bit of a chunky knife, but usually with chunk you get that extra weight and you don't here. So it's really pleasant to have a knife that fits in the hand the way a chunky knife would, but is extremely lightweight compared to those other ones. So very happy with that. Now let's talk about the action and just the functionality of the knife. One thing that was really appealing to me when I saw the design of this knife was how it was going to be essentially ambidextrous. And what I mean by that is that, yeah, it doesn't have the opening mechanism, the lock on both sides the way, say, an axis lock does that is truly ambidextrous, but you can actuate this using your right hand or your left hand. So like right-handed, one hand close and open, piece of cake. If you're left-handed or carrying this in your left hand, or carrying it in your left hand, as you can see, I'm trying to show you the flip side here, but it's very easy to, with your middle finger, disengage that lock. And the reason why this is such a nice development is the previous Kershaws that had the hawk lock, like the Ram, had it further back on the handle. So it was a lot harder to do that. It was a lot harder to close the knife one-handed, and it was especially hard to do it if you were left-handed. So, yeah, really happy with that because of the way that I carry my knives. Is it truly ambidextrous? I don't know. I don't know that you could call it that. It's definitely set up for you to be right-handed. I would love to see a GFN scale insert on this side, so that when I'm carrying it left-handed, I can get that benefit. But that's not the case, and it just sort of is what it is. As far as the action goes and the hawk lock itself, it's smooth, but it's definitely not the smoothest hawk lock I've had. It doesn't drop like freely and swing the way that I've seen the mechanism work in the past. But as you can see right here, it flies open. So the action is still very, very good. And it is still smooth. You can see the bronze washers in there. So, the action is very nice. It's just not quite on par with some of the, USA-made hawk lock designs that I've seen. And, I think that might be a big part of some of the issues is that this is a very complex locking mechanism and a lot of components to outsource to an overseas production. So my guess in some of the delays and, my guess as to why this isn't quite on par with, say, the Ram in terms of action is that it's a little bit more difficult to make that quality of product overseas and just doesn't quite work on the same level. Now, that said, at the $39 price point versus $100 plus for the Ram, you definitely do have very good value here. But let's continue and talk just a little bit more about fit and finish, because all of the little nitpicky things that I'm noticing about this knife are all fit and finish related. So let me move the scale out of the way and be able to get in here a little better. One of the big things that I'm seeing here are just a number of little bits and pieces that just aren't perfectly put together. You saw what I was showing you with the coating, but then also this GFN scale, you can even see from here, it's just not even remotely flush, on this side. So the fit and finish of the scale just isn't really good. Another weird nuance is that almost all of the screws all the way throughout the knife, when I unboxed it, they were all just loose. None of them were tight, which is just a little bit strange as well. I've had to tighten the pivot screw a couple times because it does continue to loosen up a little bit. But again, none of this stuff is a huge deal, but it is something that, you'd like to see executed just a little bit better. Overall though, guys, while these are nitpicky little things, I don't have a lot of complaints with this knife because the cool factor just overwhelms all of those little problems. It's an extremely cool knife, and at a good price, $40 to get something that is this unique. I like it. I like it a lot. I am really glad that it has finally come out. I'm glad to have it in my hands. This is going to be a knife that I use, but it's going to be one of those users that just, like I said, has that cool factor that a lot of really nicer knives have. I would love to have seen what Kershaw could have executed if they made this a USA design. And I would really like to see them maybe go a step further and do a, Induction 2.0 or just like a sister knife to this one and make it in the USA and see what kind of quality we can really get. But overall, like I said, considering the fact that this was outsourced and they did have a big challenge in putting this together, they did a pretty decent job. Happy to have this one, and yeah, hopefully you got something out of this first look. But any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. I do have a whole lot of other knives to be talking about in the near future, so stay tuned. But I look forward to talking with you soon, and have a good one. Take care.